Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. I'm also author of the book Social Selling, Influencing Buyers and Changemakers. With me today is Katie King, and we have Neill Horie with us today as well. And we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, and we're going to be talking about how artificial intelligence can impact your organization with regard to context and content. It's going to be a really interesting discussion today. So before we get into that, why don't we get Katie, why don't you introduce yourself, get everybody to know where your coordinates are.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everybody. So I'm Katie King. You can find me on email at Digital Leadership Associates, katie@social-experts.net. Find Katie King, and you'll easily find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter at Katie E King, so Katie extra E King.
Hi everyone, I'm Neill. You can find me. My name's kind of awkward because I'm Neill with 2 L's. So if you look for me, I'm at neil.horie@gmail.com. Horie is not that easy either, so I suggest just looking at the description of this talk, otherwise you'll never spell it. I'm the same on LinkedIn and the same on Twitter as well, at Neill Horie.
Thank you, guys. So we wanted today talk about artificial intelligence and the impact that has on organizations around with content and context. But before we get into that, why don't we just talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and the background to that? Because actually it's not new, is it?
No, it's definitely not. I think AI is a really confusing topic in general because we'll have all kinds of preconceptions about it. So we think about data from Star Trek, we think about the Terminator, we think about all these other kinds of things. And then, of course, there's self-driving cars, all these kind of process automation things. There's McDonald's with their desire to get rid of staff in kind of restaurants, so you can have robots talking to you. And then you've got the bits that where I kind of look at, like AI and voice search, with Amazon Echo and Google Home and all that kind of thing. So there's loads of different applications for it, and there's loads of different ways it will impact your lives as a person and as a businessman or a businesswoman and and everything in between as a customer. And unpacking all of that is very complicated. So I think for AI, as I look at it, because there's a great range of it, so I'm not going to claim to be an expert on all of them. AI, as I look at it, is about that content, as you said, Tim, when you introduced it. It's about how does AI understand what we're trying to say, what we're trying to put out, and how to best give the best information to the user.
Katie.
Yeah, I mean, Neil's covered some of the core points there, but anyone watching that doesn't really understand the real start point of it, and I think it's fair just to clarify what we mean. So we're talking about machines which are able to imitate intelligent human behavior. And as you say, Tim, that goes way back, it goes back to the 40s to the 50s, and that's what the Turing test is, that, people can actually be lulled into believing that they are interacting with a machine. So that's really what we're kind of thinking about when we consider robotics and actroids, which are a little bit further down the line, but already in multiple different industry sectors. We're seeing robotic arms cooking the burgers. We're seeing, drones doing cleaning, and, could list many, many other industry sectors. But there's also the faceless bits, as Neill talked about. We won't even be aware that they are AI, which, might be our Nest thermostat or our, one of our devices in the home. So, yeah, it's there without us even knowing it. And what's coming is, I think, the most exciting part.
So AI is, in a way, is helping us with, I've got an Amazon Echo, we've got 2 of them actually, because you never know when you want to actually update the shopping list. But one of the things that I was amazed about was that the amount of voice search that's actually taking place right now, and how people are in a way using, it's just a simple way of using artificial intelligence, but actually voice search is massive, isn't it?
Yes, so I in a recent presentation I gave at Brighton and again at Leeds just a couple of days ago, I looked at Sundar Pichai's quote from May last year, so almost a year ago, at the I/O keynote, and he said that in America, 1 in 5 of all Android mobile queries are voice queries, and that's quite abstract. But when you run it through the numbers, if you assume that's across the world, there's about 2 trillion Google voice searches across the world. That's about half of those are on mobile devices. That's about 1 trillion. About half of those are probably Androids. That's 500 billion. And that gets you 100 billion voice searches, and that's already something that's happening. And that's staggeringly huge. And that's just Google. It doesn't take Cortana, Siri, or Alexa into account, and it's really staggering how that's crept up on us. We all discuss as AI as something that's coming, and it's really exciting. When, as we just said, it's happened for years, and we just kind of let it slip by.
Katie.
Yeah, I mean, that's Neill's area, that's Neill's bag, so I haven't really got much to add to that. Just really, as you said already, starting to see it in the home, and, you know, we'll see the proliferation of that. And I think, you know, that automation through voice is again, a really exciting development.
So I mean, I'm a cynical person, and so are the people that quite often watch this. So, you know, if we take a step back, what you know, this is all very well, but what does this mean for our organisations? You know, what's the impact that you think that artificial intelligence will make on, you know, the average business in the UK and across the world?
I think it's huge, Tim, and you know, we're working day to day with organizations who are still struggling with social media, and they, even where they're major brands that have teams who have awards for their incredible social media content, as organizations, many of them are failing to use social media for customer service and so on. So, you know, people are still getting to grips with that, and I don't believe that there is enough money being invested in the training. I believe too many of the people of a certain age, of a certain responsibility in the organizations, are not in the right mindset for that change. And I'm talking about every sector, you know, financial services, manufacturing. So, you know, companies will go out of business. You know, huge swathes of workforces will be, you know, replaced by it. The Economist actually talks about the US initially, but 47% of US jobs over the next decade going to, you know, being replaced by automation. But then on another hand, you read another report and that says 10%, but still they're, you know, the big figures. Deloitte in the UK talks about a third of jobs. So I think there's massive change coming in the next decade. I think companies can still get away with, if that's the right phrase, still being able to take their time and adapt this year, next year. But you know, the sort of changes that Neill's talked about in voice activation, and, you know, the quantum computing as it kicks in, and, you know, all kinds of automation that's coming, I believe is going to, you know, force companies to change quite radically.
Neill?
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's all the stuff that Katie's talked about there from the wider business are all very true, and they're also very scary, but that's mainly the areas where we can replace what humans do. Then there's also the interesting elements of where you can add to. So rather than really the stuff taking away of jobs, it's things like being able to create things in an immediate sense. So there was a BBC Planet Earth thing a while ago where you message, whether launching Planet Earth new series, you could message the Facebook Messenger bot and say, "Hi, I'm feeling a bit sad today." And I'd go, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Do you prefer, was it like cute animals or scary animals, feathers or fur, large or small?" And gave it answers. And I'd go, "Okay, I'll message you again in a bit." And then it would message you again in a bit, and it would send you a curated video based on all the footage of all the different animals they had, and said, "This is a minute's footage. Do you like it? Is that still cool?" And you see a similar thing in kind of bits of programmatic advertising, where you could tailor the ad for exactly who the user is, where they are, what they're after, with no humans being involved. So in the one hand, that takes away the human effort. But also, a human is never going to be sat there in a 2-second window manually creating a video. That's just crazy. So yes, it does take away from what humans can do.
Yeah.
But it will also add so many more possibilities and so much more personalized ways of doing it. But just like as Katie said, right now, not a lot of people are doing it, so people don't expect it. So imagine if every single ad, every single interaction I ever have with a brand is personalized to me. Well, if this one person's brand and their company and their product isn't, why would I use them? They're not talking to me, they're just talking to someone like me, and that's going to have a massive shift on how we look at products and how we look at marketing and how we look at talking in general.
That's the irony as well, isn't it? Because as this automation kicks in, it's actually giving, well, it is making it much more personalized. So you've got some artificial intelligence actually in a banking environment, actually making people feel like the old days when they, had much more personal service from the bank. So that's the interesting irony of it. And I get another aspect to it from the point of view of changing jobs, maybe rather than eroding, is that it will take away a lot of maybe the grunt processing aspects of what we do. And that's great. So maybe as marketeers, we can focus on the creativity and the nice bits, and the number crunching, data processing aspects can be done. And the same with lawyers. I'm chatting to lawyers and surgeons and many others at the moment. And at first they were under the impression that their jobs will be safeguarded. And now they're realizing that, yes, much of what they do will be safeguarded, but there will be big elements of the ability of a AI device to analyze thousands of records, of previous medical history, or for, a robotic lawyer's assistant to be able to do that for thousands of cases, for precedent, and so on. So, let's hope it will make our jobs much more interesting in some respects.
And sometimes I think it will make, obviously because we work in marketing, I look at it sometimes from a selling point of view, but it makes giving that useful information, whether it's sales or not, much more useful. So I think when we spoke the other day, you were mentioning about, we all spoke about Transport for London. The Transport for London allows you to ask, what's the service like on my line? And I just think of that, less with Transport for London because they're quite efficient, but using my buses, if I'm at my bus stop and I say, oh, my bus is late, they'll go, oh yeah, sorry, it's 3 minutes late, and it's a bit late for that reason. Now, that's not just taking away jobs and that kind of thing, it's just making it such a better experience for everyone involved. You don't get the angry customer speaking to you, and the customer's not angry, and everything works better. So it's just a general wheel greasing that's going on.
I think the number one thing that customers always complain about is the lack of information. Yeah. And I think anything that, I even know that on buses in London, there's been, these little LED signs are saying, your bus is 3 minutes away or something like that, which is always useful because you want to know when the next bus is. But anything that provides additional information, and also Neill, when I started work, there was typing pools, right? I used to handwrite letters, right, and hand them into the typing pool, and they got typed up. And nobody's sitting there going, whatever happened to the typing pools? Because what happened was that the people just went and did something else.
Yes.
And I know there was some research recently in London where 10% of the jobs that are now in London weren't there 10 years ago. Because there's data scientists and there's social media and and all of the SEO and all of those things that we kind of go, well, yeah, because they're jobs. They didn't exist 10 years ago. Sure. So I'm not sure that there's a jobs issue. I just think that people will need to be redeployed, which is a different subject for a different day. But
yeah, you're right, Tim. Think of the banking staff being replaced by ATMs and e-commerce in retail, and I do think this is different. We are now talking about sort of human capital being replaced by, I guess, fixed capital, because we are talking about hardware, we are talking about machines. And there's definitely, all the research you read, the government's put, UK government's put 2 billion into a new industrial, fund. So people are taking this seriously. And, in the Nordics, they're looking at when, not if, they will have to think of considering paying everyone a basic salary.
Yes.
And so I started with that definition of, the machines imitating intelligent human behavior, where there are not, people are not able to now take on and be trained to do jobs of that nature, perhaps more intelligent people, then there will be a bigger crisis, I believe. And that's where I think the governments, the academics, the scientists all will need to join forces and, collaborate and think about the wealth distribution and so on. So, yeah, some interesting macro issues there.
I think in the short to medium term as well, there's the concept. It almost feels like everyone looks at it as if AI is coming and then it will be here day one, right, everything's gone, everything's changed. When really the AI is only as good as we are at teaching it. And it's taken us, I don't know, millennia to teach ourselves to be as good as we are now. So I'm not saying AI will take that long, but we've got to give a lot of information to that AI. It has to learn from a hell of a lot of data, of us telling it what to do, of it seeing how we do it, that even in the medium term, there's going to be a case of, right, let's say we want to replace a builder. We need to speak to a lot of builders and figure out what their processes are, figure out what tools they use. So even if they are going to be phased out, there's going to have to be a long period where even if their job changes from building to training robots to build, that skill is still going to be absolutely crucial for the short, medium, and for the sake of our lifetimes, even a long term. It's only the super long term, the multi-lifetime, when you can actually say that every single part of the human skill set becomes obsolete.
Yeah, I agree almost fully, except, and I'm thinking more like 50 years when quantum computing probably really does kick in, and then you have proper machine learning, and the machines teach the machines. But I think, there's a lot of work still to be done, and we are definitely still in control. Let's just not hope, but let's say.
So from a practical perspective, how is it that we can see, what areas in marketing, in customer service, in search engine optimization, and social, what areas can you see AI basically impacting, and is that going to transform the business in any particular way?
I think it's everything, and I think it's even more than the long list that you've already given, because there's so many moving parts involved. Like, let's take the case of the BBC Planet Earth as an easy example, and as a creative and fun example. It's not even that techie, it's just quite nice. You need the people that are recording the stuff in the first place. You need the editors to be sorting out what goes where. You need someone to be writing the questions. You need someone back in the original branding, or however you did it, to decide the language, the tone of voice, that kind of thing. You need to be deciding what platform are your audience on. Now let's move to a much more complicated thing, like doing customer service or doing proper product information, product inventory. Your social people need to be involved, because down the front line, they actually talk to your customers. You need them involved to know what to ask, and when to triage from when should it be a bot and when does it have to be a person.
Yep.
So you need your standard customer service stuff, all your call center logs. Every time you've got, hopefully your business has a decent Bible of the frequently asked questions you've got involved. You should get your CRM involved, because you're trying to figure out what problems does this customer have, what things can we upsell, change what we're selling, and be more efficient with it. And then that leads to all wider marketing about brands. It leads to SEO, because obviously there's no point having your AI bit say one thing and then your website says something else. But then if you can't have your website and your AI say something, that starts getting you into brochures and print, and then into TV, and that gets you into products. Because what if your products, I don't know, maybe your products are designed so neutrally that if I put my phone and take a picture of it, I can't tell whether it's this product or that product. So maybe my product design needs to change. The whole breadth of everything we need to do needs to be involved in this, to make sure we're not making catastrophic mistakes in a really nuanced way that will mean the AI is not able to understand it. And then if the AI doesn't understand it, it can't tell our customer.
Yeah.
So Katie, does that mean that we need like some sort of strategy around AI, or what's your view?
100%. I think the danger is that we feel inundated with this. We don't have the knowledge of it. We aren't trained for it. And therefore we let other people control our agenda as businesses. And we jump on this bandwagon and buy this app tomorrow and invest in this technology the day after. So yeah, we do need, I think we are still in control. I think, we can take, we have to obviously do our research and look at our industry sector. Some are evolving, retailers one, and financial services. They're evolving quicker than other industries like construction and so on. So I think, do your market research, look at what your competitors are doing, read your Forrester reports, your economist reports, and then sit down as a management team and understand, how do we need to buy in the right level of support? What is our strategy going to be? Do we see a long-term strategy? If so, what does that look like? And how are we going to ensure that we survive, and thrive in this new world?
So Neill, does this kind of feel that we need to know the buyer's journey, or is there? Do you have an opinion on that at all?
I think you need to have as much view of what's going on. You need to have as much view of where everything is to truly understand it. And that goes back to a kind of, I don't like the phrase, but obviously it's important, the big data. You need that big understanding of the journey. And I think on the one hand, that sounds quite daunting. There's a lot of information there. But as the AI picks up, obviously we've already discussed that more of that will be picked up for you. So it's not a case that a single marketer has to sit down and work all of this out, get all these bits, because it's good, that bit's going to be automated as well. You'll have to have the input of various bits, but it's all going to be there. And I think the possibilities of it kind of become speaking for themselves. It's not just you should do this because it's kind of a nice thing. It's some way you could look at. It's because the competition is doing it. Obviously, as you said, some industries are going to be slower than others. I can't see construction doing it quite as fast as digital marketing. It's because it's simpler. There's no physical moving parts. But it is that risk of falling behind the competition of in every respect. It's always about looking better than them, doing something better than them, giving that edge. So it's the simple answer of not having it ruled out. But also, despite the fact that some industries will be slower than others, I think it will lead to a domino effect. Just as Katie was talking about in terms of quantum computing, that it will become quite rapid when machines learn from machines. We will learn from other products. So just because one in construction doesn't have it now, but if groceries does, I can't go, well, it's so much easier to buy my groceries than it is to buy my builder. So it'll just lead to domino effect. One person will do it, probably Amazon, given by the way things are going, and if they do it, it's going to become effective for everyone else. And as I said earlier, it gives you a direct and powerful way to interact. Because if you understand that user journey, you know what moments to jump into, and you have an AI automatically doing it for you, it's so powerful. It can reduce the customer effort score. It can reduce all these blockages and sell more stuff and reach more people. It becomes compounding. It builds on itself.
And that's why, back to the question before, Tim, it has to be a strategic board level decision and ongoing commitment, because what Neill's describing is a tech advice. It's a CTO, it's a CIO, but increasingly it's CMO. So the chief marketing, the marketing team are making decisions on whether it's Einstein by Salesforce, which is highly technical. So the integration of tools being deployed by marketing to give that predictive analysis on which customers are likely to be warmer and therefore sales should be talking to them. All of a sudden, you've got a sales team, a marketing team, a tech team, legal having to have their say. So that's why it has to be board level. Unfortunately, in the past, those kinds of decisions have been very much driven by the IT teams.
Sorry, Neill.
I was saying, sorry, Katie, operations too, because let's say I'm trying to give my customer all that information. Let's say I've ordered a package. Well, that means, think of Domino's with its nice 5-step thing of this is where your pizza is, it's in the oven, it's big. I want that for all of my products. So I want to know, right, I bought it, the drone is now picking it up from the warehouse, it's now there. Oh, it's running a bit late, I'm just going to check. Oh yeah, it's now on this stage. That requires a massive operational buy-in. Operations to buy into this being worth it, to change all their processes, their facilities, to get tech involved. Yeah. So it's not just all the marketing and even the tech bits. Operations and it needs to be involved at every step of the way. They need to be brought into it, because then they also need to do a lot of the work, and it will hopefully lead to a nice harmony where, if you think of the idea of you want to do what you preach, you want to properly live your brand promise. The best way to do that is to properly unify your operations and your marketing and your tech and everything. But then hopefully you can say honestly, and probably in the future your customers will be able to check. If I say 99% of my product is delivered on time, I can go on, I can just quickly Google it or Amazon it or whatever and go, actually no, data says it's 98%. Yeah. So all the information will be open. You can't just leave it to marketing. Sadly, you can't just leave it to me to do all of it for you. Operations need to buy in, need to do it, need to agree, and we need to come to that decision together. That can't just be imposed.
So what you're saying really is that all of the, because quite often at the moment, social, SEO, customer service kind of work in silos. Yeah. And what you're saying is that all kind of needs to come together and actually, work together, know what each other do, have a common language, and, stop throwing stones at each other over email or whatever. and come together. And so is AI the unifying technology for this?
Yeah, I think it's the disrupting one that will force them to unify. It will require, CEOs to decide how they restructure their teams. It will require, as you say, that better collaboration and communication. And the great piece is that it's all because it needs to be focused on the customer. And that's a real full circle from many years ago, where it was really cold, hard selling and Ford have any car as long as it's black. And, it really is, as has been predicted, the age of the customer. And, that's an exciting place to be.
It is for me as well. One of my colleagues said about the SEO industry that we're a bunch of people who get our beautiful, pristine waters of the internet and we pollute it, and then we complain about how bad it is. And there's a lot of that in SEO too, that the old hat stuff, the directory submissions and blog spam and all that stuff. Whereas we know that's not working, and that's already changing. And I think marketing in particular, at least where I've been working, or fortunate to work, has always said integrate everything as much as possible, get everything unified. And I think everyone kind of believes that they need to work closer together. But as you say, there's not been that disruption to force you to do it. AI, even though it would be hideously painful to do lots of this stuff, it will be beneficial not just for the AI, but also the general internal communication, for the feeling of camaraderie in a business, that everyone actually believes they're working towards the same goal and they talk to each other. And I think you made an excellent point about the same language. That bit becomes crucial. If we're not using the same language, the same terminology, and the same data points, if we don't have our data set up so that it can be in the same format on a brochure, on a voice chat interaction, on a website, on a holographic display, or whatever format it is, it needs to be consistent, it needs to be integrated, it needs to be thought through. There's nothing worse already in normal life. You get a television ad and it says one offer, and then you go in the store, actually, no, we don't do that offer. But that's only going to be even more important when AI is trying to figure out, okay, what is your business? Because this thing says you do, office space, and that one says you do exciting interiors. You have to use the same words, the same terminology, the same data, and everything has to be built and constructed holistically.
Transparency, yeah. I mean, back to the focus on the customer. It's transparency, it's knowledge at their fingertips, it's speed, it's an ethical way of working and interacting. And I think we'll see in the future new politics, new economics, customers on boards of companies, and again, I think be prepared for that huge change. But as Neill says, it's still incremental for a period of time, but believe that will soon, explode.
Okay, great. So we're at 27 minutes. So it goes very quickly. So Neill, have you got any final comments at all, or points you want to get over to people?
I suppose my biggest point is the one I was making there, is get everything consolidated, get everything in the same language, same terminology, and get it in one place, get it centrally, so it's all consistent, and then you can feed it out. Make sure that the data is intelligible, make sure that it's easy to change, because as we said, it's an iterative process. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. We know it needs to be clean. We know it needs to be consistent, and that will take a while to do. So the sooner you start getting all of your information, all of your data consistent, the better you'll be in the short term and the long term.
Cool. Katie?
Well, I would just say, a few tips really, because there's a really confusing array of data, reports, contradictory reports out there. So we've touched upon a few of them, but, looking at the wider impact on your organization, look at that holistically, buy in the right kind of consultancy, we're there if you need our help. Same with the training, recruiting the right kind of people, but not just seeing this as the kind of domain of the millennial, but experienced business people who can offer you that right sort of guidance. So buy that in, get the right sort of training, be prepared to evolve and go with it. You can reinvent yourselves, and I think new industries are being created, and organizations will evolve. So that's what I would add. Great, thank you. So thanks both to you. So Neill, again, remind everybody where they can get hold of you. So you can get hold of me. I'll spell it out this time. My name is Neill, and then Horie. It's at that, or on LinkedIn and that, or it's Neill.Horie at gmail.com. And sooner or later you'll get the right spelling will appear. Google won't know it.
I mean, the great thing about having that spelling is that if you go to LinkedIn and search on you, there's only one of you.
Yes, but obviously you have to spell it right the first time.
You do, yeah. Well, there's lots of Tim Hugheses. That's the downside for me. You see, Katie.
So yeah, thanks, Neil. Tim, Katie at social-experts.net and at Katie E King, or just Google me and you'll find me on LinkedIn as well. Brilliant.
Thanks for today. Appreciate all your insight, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.